Listen closely, young ones, because what I'm about to tell you might save your life one day. My name is Vexlar, Chief Historian of the Galactic Archives, and I'm recording this message as a warning to future generations. You see, I was there when it all happened, what we now call the calculator incident. Hey, even saying those words makes my secondary heart flutter with anxiety. Oh, you think I'm being dramatic? Trust me, I wish I was. But when you've seen an entire galactic civilization brought to its knees by a single human with what they called a basic calculator, you learn to take these things seriously. Before I tell you about the incident itself, you need to understand just how advanced we thought we were. The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for over 50,000 stellar cycles. We had quantum computers that could process the movement of every particle in a solar system. Our ships could bend space-time like it was nothing more than a piece of fabric. Our youngest children played with toys more sophisticated than most civilizations' supercomputers. We were arrogant. By all the stars were we arrogant. When we first detected the humans' primitive radio signals, the Council actually laughed. I remember sitting in that grand chamber, its crystalline walls reaching toward the triple suns of Centauri Prime, watching as High Councillor Praxit displayed their technology to the assembled representatives. Look, she said, her tentacles waving in amusement. They still use something called wireless fidelity for their communications. How quaint. The Council's response. They decided to make first contact out of pity. Yes, pity. They thought it would be charitable to help guide these primitives into the galactic community. After all, how dangerous could a species be when they hadn't even figured out basic neural networking or consciousness transfer? I'll never forget the day we first saw their ships approaching our border outpost. Such crude vessels, all metal and chemical propulsion. No antimatter drives, no quantum shielding, not even basic reality warping capability. The Council's Science Division estimated their technology to be at least 10,000 years behind ours. But here's something I've learned since then: never judge a species by their technology level. Judge them by how they use what they have. The humans had this saying that none of us understood at the time: necessity is the mother of invention. We thought it was just another example of their primitive metaphorical language. Now that phrase sends shivers down my dorsal ridge. You see, while we had spent millennia perfecting our technology, making it more elegant, more sophisticated, more complex, the humans had been doing something entirely different. They had been learning to improvise, to adapt, to overcome limitations with whatever tools they had at hand. While we needed quantum processors to calculate faster-than-light trajectories, they could do it with something that ran on batteries. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand the full context of what happened next. The Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to assign one human engineer to each of our major technological centers. Let them learn from us, they said. Show them how advanced civilization operates. Security note: the following contains details about engineer Mira Chen, designated as threat level Omega by the new Galactic Council. Exercise extreme caution with this information. And that's how we met Mira Chen. Looking back now, I can still picture her standing there in the council chamber, smiling politely, holding that innocent-looking calculator device. Nobody, not a single one of our 184 member species, saw what was coming. Oh, what's that? You want to know what happened next? Well, let me tell you about the day everything we thought we knew about technological superiority came crashing down around us. But first, you might want to sit down. This isn't a story for the faint of heart or weak of constitution. Our first proper meeting with Mira Chen happened on what humans call a Monday. She showed up wearing what they termed business casual, apparently considered professional attire on their world. In one hand, she carried a bag filled with primitive data storage devices, and in the other, that calculator. That cursed calculator. Hi there, she said, waving at the security checkpoint with far too much enthusiasm for someone meeting an advanced civilization. I'm the new engineer from Earth. Hope I'm not late. The security officers, three Xixian warriors with enhanced combat neural networks, exchanged confused looks. Their threat assessment systems were probably malfunctioning, I thought. After all, how could they register such high danger readings from someone so unthreatening? High Councillor Praxit's reaction was priceless. All 7 of her eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of supreme confusion in her species. You're the engineer, she asked, her universal translator struggling to maintain a diplomatic tone. But you're so analog. Mira just smiled wider. Yep, that's me. Got my trusty TI-84 and everything. She held up the calculator like it was some sort of badge of honor. Looking back, I should have noticed how the device's display flickered oddly when she pressed a few buttons. But like everyone else, I was too busy being amused by her apparent simplicity. The Council's Chief Technology Officer, Grand Engineer Zilix 9, actually laughed out loud, all three of his mouthparts clicking in that distinctive way that indicated both amusement and disdain. "My dear human," he said, "we have quantum computers that can calculate the trajectory of every particle in your solar system. What possible use could that primitive device serve here?" "Oh, you'd be surprised," Mira replied, still smiling. "Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones." We assigned her to the lowest level of our engineering hierarchy, of course. Gave her basic maintenance tasks that even our cleaning drones could handle. It was meant to be a diplomatic gesture, let the primitive human feel useful while we went about our actually important work. The first sign that something was different about Mira came during her orientation tour. Grand Engineer Zilix 9 was showing her our central processing core, a quantum computer the size of a small moon, when she asked the most bizarre question. "Have you guys ever considered using Excel?" The universal translators actually crashed trying to process the absurdity of that query. When we finally got them working again, Zilix 9 spent 20 minutes explaining why their primitive spreadsheet software couldn't possibly compare to our quantum systems. Mira just nodded, pressed a few buttons on her calculator, and said, sure, just thinking out loud. We gave her an office in the lowest basement level, next to the waste recycling units. She thanked us like we'd given her a luxury suite. When we provided her with access to only the most basic systems, she acted grateful for the opportunity. "Don't worry about giving me anything too advanced," she said, setting up her workstation with those primitive devices. "I'll figure things out as I go along." If only we'd known what figuring things out meant to a human engineer. Personal note, I still wake up some nights, remembering how she smiled every time we patronized her. It wasn't the smile of someone being polite. It was the smile of someone who knew something we didn't. And so began what we thought would be a simple cultural exchange program. We had no idea we were watching the beginning of the greatest technological upheaval in galactic history. Let me tell you about Kaz Tor, who had the dubious honor of being Mira Chen's direct supervisor. Picture, if you will, a being whose entire career was built on following procedures to the letter. 4 arms, each holding a different data pad, constantly monitoring system protocols. He was the perfect choice to supervise our human guest, or so we thought. Listen carefully, human engineer Kaz Tor said on her first real day of work, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for malfunctioning cleaning bots. "Your task is simple. Monitor the waste recycling systems and report any anomalies. Do you think you can handle that?" Mira nodded, tapping away at her calculator. "Got it. Watch the pipes, report the weird stuff. Should be fun." Kaz Tor's facial ridges twitched in irritation. "This is serious work. The entire station's waste management depends on proper monitoring." "Oh, of course," Mira agreed, looking appropriately chastised. "Super serious. Say, quick question, why do you route the quantum fluid cooling systems through the same channels as the basic water recycling?" Kaz Tor blinked all 3 sets of eyelids. "We don't." That would be, he checked his data pads frantically. "That's impossible. The systems are completely separate." Really, Mira held up her calculator, showing some basic arithmetic. Because if you look at the flow rates and cross-reference them with the maintenance schedules. The first accident happened exactly 3 hours later. Somehow, the waste recycling system started performing 300% more efficiently. Kaz Tor was furious, convinced Mira had broken something. When the maintenance crews investigated, they found the systems working perfectly, just not in any way they understood. "I just carried the 2," Mira explained, waving her calculator. "You know, basic math. The second incident came 2 days later. Kaz Tor had assigned her to dust the backup processors, literally dust them, with a cleaning cloth. By the end of her shift, the processing speed had doubled." "What did you do?" Kaz Tor demanded, all 4 arms gesturing wildly at the performance readings. "Oh no, did I mess something up?" Mira asked, looking concerned. "I was just following the manual." She held up her calculator, where she had apparently stored the maintenance protocols. "See? Right here between the cosine function and the square root button." Kaz Tor filed 17 different complaints that week. Each one detailed how the human engineer was clearly incompetent and potentially dangerous. Every investigation concluded the same thing: systems were working better than ever, even if nobody could explain why. Then came the day of the great sewage backup. Alarms blared throughout the station. Kaz Tor was in a panic, all 4 data pads flashing red warnings. "What did you do?" he shrieked at Mira, who was calmly pressing buttons on her calculator. "Me? I was just carrying out routine maintenance." She showed him her calculator screen. "Look, according to these calculations, If we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, that's not even a real thing, Kaz-Tor interrupted. You can't reverse the polarity of neutron flow. It's physically impossible. 5 minutes later, the sewage system was not only fixed but had somehow gained the ability to recycle waste into pure energy. The station's power output tripled overnight. Must have been a coincidence, Mira suggested, pocketing her calculator. Good thing it sorted itself out. Kaz-Tor started twitching whenever he saw her after that. His complaints became increasingly desperate. She's doing everything wrong, he insisted to the council. She's violating every protocol we have, and somehow it's all working better. The council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to promote Kaz-Tor to a different department. Clearly the stress of supervising our primitive guest is affecting your performance, they told him. We'll assign someone more. Patient. That's when they brought in senior engineer Nixis. Now there was someone who should have noticed what was really happening. Should have, but didn't. None of us did. We were all too busy laughing at the humans' apparent bumbling successes to notice the pattern. Security note: subsequent investigation revealed that 47% of Kaz-Tor's complaints were automatically redirected to a spam folder by what appeared to be a simple calculator macro. Don't worry, Mira said to her new supervisor, that same innocent smile on her face. I'm sure we'll work great together. I've got some interesting ideas about improving the quantum communication arrays. Just need to run a few calculations first. Looking back, the pattern was so obvious it hurts. But you know what they say about hindsight, actually? That's another human phrase one picked up. They have a lot of those. Turns out they're pretty handy for describing catastrophic realizations. Senior engineer Nixis was the first to notice something odd. Unlike Kaz-Tor's frantic complaints, Nixis took a more analytical approach. She started keeping a log of Mira's accidents. Day 37, Mira trips and spills coffee on the quantum mainframe. System processing speed increases by 700%. Day 42, calculator falls into the artificial gravity generator. Station now requires 90% less power to maintain gravitational field. Day 45, Mira accidentally connects her laptop to the wrong port. Ship's navigation system now plots courses in half the time with double the accuracy. There's no way these are coincidences, Nixis reported to the council. But I've watched her work. She really does seem to be just bumbling around. High Councillor Praxit dismissed the concerns. Look at her. She still uses physical buttons to input commands. How dangerous could she be? Meanwhile, Mira continued her work with that same cheerful clumsiness. She'd walk into rooms apologizing for being late, blame her primitive timekeeping device, then somehow optimize every system she touched while trying to check the time. The maintenance logs became increasingly bizarre. Attempted to fix coffee maker, accidentally improved faster than light drive efficiency by 200%. Dropped calculator into weapons system during routine cleaning. Defense grid now predicts enemy movements before they happen. Tried to connect printer to network, somehow merged all communication systems into single quantum entangled network that operates faster than light speed. Council member Zex Ra was the next to raise concerns. Has anyone actually checked what she's typing into that calculator, they asked during an emergency session. Of course, Grand Engineer Zilix-9 assured everyone. It's just basic arithmetic. Look, I'll show you the surveillance footage. The footage showed Mira pressing buttons 8008, 135, 8143. See, Zilix-9 said triumphantly. Simple addition. That's when junior analyst Rex Poor, fresh out of the academy, spoke up. Sir, when you turn that upside down, it spells. The entire council rushed to look at their own calculators. 5 of them fainted. But the real turning point came during what we now call the coffee machine incident. Mira had been complaining about the quality of our synthetic beverage dispensers. Said they couldn't make a proper cup of joe. We humored her request to take a look at the system. 3 days later, every beverage dispenser in the station was producing drinks that made even our most sophisticated pleasure simulation programs feel inadequate. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that the dispensers had somehow gained access to the station's quantum networks. Oh gosh, did I cross some wires? Mira asked, looking genuinely distressed. I was just trying to calculate the optimal water temperature. When the tech team investigated, they found snippets of code written in something called BASIC integrated into our quantum systems. Not just in the beverage dispensers, but everywhere. Every system Mira had touched contained traces of what she called simple programming shortcuts. That's when council member Texas La made a startling connection. Wait a minute, they said during an emergency session. Didn't her personnel file say she specialized in something called reverse engineering on Earth? The council chamber went silent. What exactly, Praxit asked slowly, is reverse engineering? Before anyone could answer, the station's AI announced system upgrade complete. New operating system installed. Thank you for choosing Humanos 2.0. Mira's voice came over the intercom. Oops. Sorry about that, everyone. Was just trying to fix the notification system. Did anyone else notice it was running a bit slow? The council finally called an emergency meeting, their first in 300 years. They gathered in their secure chamber, certain that their quantum encrypted communications were safe from primitive human technology. That's when they discovered that every calculator in the station had somehow become a quantum terminal. Security note: later analysis revealed that Mira had been using the display of her calculator as a quantum programming interface all along. The numbers weren't calculations, they were code. Maybe, suggested one brave council member, we should ask her what else she's planning to accidentally improve. The answer came sooner than anyone expected. And it came, like everything else in this disaster, through a series of apparently random accidents that somehow resulted in the complete restructuring of galactic technology as we knew it. The day everything fell apart or came together, depending on your perspective, started like any other. Praxit was addressing the council about the latest series of accidents when every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed the same message. Integration complete, thanks for being such good sports. The smiley face emoticon was what really terrified them. Mira's voice came over the communication system, which shouldn't have been possible in the secure chamber. Hey everyone, good news, I finally fixed all those inefficiencies in your systems. Bad news, you might want to sit down for this next part. That's when every calculator in the station displayed the same message warning: your trial period has expired. Please purchase Humanos Pro to continue using advanced features. Praxit's tentacles went pale. What? What advanced features? Oh, Mira replied cheerfully, just the basics. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, quantum computing. Those kinds of things. Don't worry though, I left life support on the free version. The council exploded into chaos. Grand Engineer Zilix 9 frantically tried to override the systems, but found himself locked out by what the computer claimed was a forgotten password challenge, asking for his mother's maiden name. This is impossible, he shouted, all three mouthparts quivering. How did she do this with a primitive calculating device? That's when Mira walked into the chamber, still holding her trusty calculator. Actually, funny story about that. Remember all those times you guys laughed at my primitive technology? Well, turns out there's something to be said for keeping things simple. She pressed a button on her calculator, and suddenly every quantum screen in the chamber displayed lines of code. Beautiful, elegant, terrifyingly simple code. See, while you were building bigger and more complex systems, we humans learn to do more with less. When you have limited resources, you get creative. And when you understand the basics really, really well, she grinned, you can make them do almost anything. But the quantum encryption, Praxit sputtered. The neural firewalls, the reality warping security measures, all running on fundamentally simple mathematics, Mira explained, showing her calculator's screen. Once you understand the math, the rest is just details. And humans, we're really good at details. She pressed another button. Throughout the station, systems began optimizing themselves in ways our best engineers hadn't thought possible. You rebuilt our entire infrastructure, Nixis said, finally understanding. All those accidents were mostly accidents. Actually, Mira admitted, I really am kind of clumsy. But when you understand systems from the ground up, even accidents can be educational. By the way, you might notice your quantum processors running a bit faster now. Turns out they work better when you don't overcomplicate things. The council watched in horror as their technology, the pride of 50,000 years of development, was essentially reprogrammed by what they now realized were testing protocols disguised as mathematical errors. Don't worry, Mira assured them, still smiling. I left detailed documentation. Written in BASIC, of course. Figured you should start with the fundamentals, so there you have it. The story of how a single human engineer with a basic calculator reshaped our entire civilization. But before you close this record, let me share some final thoughts and warnings. First, if you ever meet a human who says, I have a simple solution, run fast, run far, because their definition of simple usually means about to change everything you think you know about reality. Second, never, under any circumstances, laugh at human technology. Sure, that communication device might look primitive with its touch screen and apps, but for all you know, it's probably capable of reformatting the fabric of space-time. They call their devices smartphones, think about that. They made their phones smart. What does that tell you about their capabilities? These days, the calculator incident is required study at every engineering academy in the galaxy. There's even a statue of Mira Chen in the council chambers. Well, technically, it's a statue of her calculator. No one could agree on what she actually looked like, because we were all too busy watching her accidental improvements to take a proper photo. The official human integration guidelines now consist of a single page with 3 rules. 1. If a human offers to take a look at your technology, assume everything you know is about to change. 2. If a human says, "Oops, brace for a revolutionary breakthrough." 3. Never ask a human engineer why can't we, because they'll show you exactly why you can. Oh, and that calculator, the original one Mira used, it's now the most heavily guarded artifact in the Galactic Museum. Not because it's dangerous, but because it keeps mysteriously improving the security systems protecting it. Personal edition last week, a human child visited the museum and asked why we're using such complicated security measures. I've submitted my resignation, effective immediately. Remember this story, young ones. Remember it well. Because somewhere out there right now, a human is looking at some piece of advanced technology and thinking, there's probably a simpler way to do this. And may the great cosmic calculator have mercy on us all. End of historical record 2784b. Final warning: if you hear a human say, "Watch this, your civilization will never be the same." Transmission complete. Note: this document has been automatically optimized for clarity by Humanos 2.0. Praxit, trying to maintain some dignity, drew herself up to her full height. "And what do you want in exchange for returning control of our systems?" "Return control? Oh no, you misunderstand. I didn't take control, I gave it back to you. Check your systems. They're running better than ever, and now you actually understand how they work. Well, you will once you finish the tutorial. I included lots of practice exercises." She held up her calculator one last time. Sometimes the best technology isn't the most advanced, it's the most understood. Now, who wants to learn how to program a quantum computer using nothing but a calculator and some clever thinking? The silence in the chamber was broken only by the soft beeping of calculators throughout the station, each one displaying the same message. Lesson 1: Why simple solutions are often the best solutions. A human's guide to galactic engineering. Security note: the resulting technological revolution became known as the Great Simplification, the day when the galaxy's most advanced civilization learned they'd been doing it wrong for millennia. The changes that swept through galactic society after the calculator incident were both subtle and profound. First came the panic, of course. Several council members tried to have their consciousness uploaded to the quantum network to escape the situation, only to find themselves trapped in what Mira had labeled the basic tutorial level. "You'll get full access back once you complete the course," she promised. "Don't worry, I made it fun. There's even achievements to unlock." The Galactic News Networks had a field day. Breaking: entire Galactic Council stuck in tutorial mode. Human engineer revolutionizes space travel with one weird trick. Top 10 things you didn't know your calculator could do. Number 7 will terrify you. But the real shock came during the investigation into Mira's background. Turns out she wasn't just any engineer, she was considered somewhat average by human standards. The Council's collective nervous breakdown upon learning this fact is now studied in medical schools across the galaxy. "You mean there are more of you?" Praxit asked during the formal inquiry, her tentacles twitching uncontrollably. "Oh sure," Mira replied, still typing on her calculator. "Though most of them probably would have done this much faster. I was being kind of slow, to be polite." That's when we discovered her actual mission. She hadn't been sent to learn from us at all. She'd been sent to prepare us. "Look," she explained to the shell-shocked council, "humans are coming to join the galactic community whether you're ready or not. We figured you'd prefer a gentle introduction, rather than having 1,000 of us show up and start optimizing things without warning." The Council's response was to create an entirely new department, Human Containment and Understanding. Its first action was to recommend surrendering completely to human engineering expertise. But here's the real kicker, the part that still keeps me up at night. Remember all those accidents that improved our systems? Turns out they were carefully calculated to fail in exactly the right ways. Each mistake was a lesson, teaching our systems to think more like humans, to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Think of it like teaching a child, Mira explained during her exit interview. You don't start them with quantum mechanics, you start with basic arithmetic. Speaking of which, your quantum computers should be finishing kindergarten about now. The political fallout was intense. Several council members resigned in shame. Others demanded to be enrolled in human engineering courses. Praxit herself was found late one night in her office, sobbing over a basic calculator, trying to understand how it all went so wrong. But the most profound change was in how we viewed technology. Gone were the days of blindly adding complexity for complexity's sake. Humans taught us something we'd forgotten over our 50,000 years of advancement. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. They call it the KISS principle, keep it simple. Stupid, we tried to have that phrase banned from official documents, but somehow it keeps reappearing in our systems, usually followed by a smiley face. Personal note, I still keep one of those primitive calculators on my desk. Not to use it, just to remind me. Every now and then I swear I see it blink at me.